right here, Paradox Diaries 19. Not a very good spin there, but that'll do. Tonight is going to be a slight diversion. I'm going to practice a little bit of Bagua, and so I'll be talking about that. Right now I'm going to start shaking. The whole protocol I've been following is shaking before going to bed, noticing that my heart rate variability has increased generally 50% to 200%, 50% being more common. And then in the morning, my heart rate variability is in pretty good shape. And I care about that because it's a good indication of overall bodily health. All right. I want to talk a little bit about a particular Qigong move and what related to the infinity symbol. So dragon strikes out. Generally, your feet are hip width apart. Sorry, or a horse riding stance or double hip width apart, knees bent. And maybe your feet are turned out a little bit. It looks something like this. Now, the practice is to push with the, say, in this case, the left foot. I push up my leg. I actually extend and open my hip rotator. I keep twisting my torso. And then at the very end, my arm's lagging and then it whips out. And then it drops. And then I pick it up again from this side. I push, 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 arm lags. And then finally at the end, it extends. So now at this point, I've got the ligaments and tendons and muscles up, drop down. Do you see now we're forming the infinity symbol? Then you can speed it if you want. But this is more about slowly moving your energy and learning how to connect your body. All right, now I'm going to go back to shaking for a second, and we'll come back to that in a minute. So I'm going to be doing Bagua earlier. Bagua is a circular, very circular martial art. But for Tai Chi is the balance of yin and yang. So for example, as an opponent comes in, I take in their energy, and then I give it back to them. Yin, yang. And so at any moment within a particular step, you might be going into or out of a yin pose or going into or out of a yang response. And so the ideal is that the yin and the yang at any given point are perfectly balanced. That is, as your opponent is coming in, you're receiving it, and then as you respond and you start to engage or move them a little bit, they notice and they pull back, and then you go with them. That's the idea. One of the standard metaphors is the standing walking tree, because you're moving, but you're keeping your torso erect. I don't want to be leaning because if I'm leaning, I'm making it easier to take myself off of balance. Another thing is impossibly near versus impossibly far. And the idea there is you respond, I've got that, minimally. You respond minimally. So this is the opponent's force coming in. So force is coming into my torso. Force is coming into my torso. So the first thing I do is I adjust to the side, say. The force hits me, but since it's no longer on center, it helps me to twist my body and then take in the energy. And we might say, step up and hold a ball. We might say, protect the groin. And then eventually, at the end of this, I pull a little bit. The opponent, noticing I'm pulling, pulls back, and then I allow the opponent to go the direction they want, and there goes their arm. So that's what I'm doing there. Yin yang. And so Wu Chi is before Tai Chi, before the separation of yin from yang. You can think about that as non-differentiation, singularity. And then Tai Chi, the movement from no movement into movement becomes the paradox that initiates the need for the balance of yin from yang. And the reason that Wu Chi is unstable is because the notion of stability only exists in the separation of stability and instability. And at no differentiation, there is no separation. So the irony or the paradox is that stability or singularity is inherently unstable because the notion of stability itself is nonsensical to the thing that is non-differentiated. So that's Wu Chi. And that idea of perfect balance collapsing into non-differentiation exists at any moment in time. Are you doing the perfect response, whatever that perfect response is? And of course, perfect is an ideal, right? Perfect is either a journey, not a destination, or it's an instantaneous acceptance of exactly what is. So perfection has lots of different interpretations, and most of them are pretty nonsensical. Probably the two I gave, or even more so. Okay, so I can tell my wrists are starting to feel rubbery in a nice loose way, so they've loosened up a bit. I haven't really been monitoring where I'm breathing, so I'm going to check for that for a second. Where am I breathing in my chest? Okay, I'm pretty loose. Yeah, that's okay. So I've got my resting tension down quite a bit on the surface of my skin. Now I'm going to be doing some twisting stuff, so I'm going to go ahead and warm up my spine a little bit. I'm going to emphasize right now, my feet are parallel. I'm a little bit wider than hip width. I'm going to make sure that the outside of my feet stay sort of engaged so that I minimally twist my knees. I don't want to get too much going on in my knees here. Now, I'm actually letting my arms twist with my hips. So in fact, here, let me just do this. As much as possible, I'm going to try to not do anything with my arms. So my arms are moving because of what I'm doing with the rest of my body. In Tai Chi, things start with the feet and end with the arms. Now I'm going to actually hit 2 specific spots, just below the belly button, about 2 finger width below the belly button. Straight back is your dantian, your lower dantian or main dantian, your reproductive organs. So I'm stimulating from that direction, and just opposite, that's the gate of life. And as that tightens up, you tend to need to lean forward. So if you sit all day, you hurt your lower back. So the gate of life is right here. And you want to keep that loose and subtle, because if you, supple, not subtle, supple, because if you don't, you eventually have to use a walker. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to now do a little more spine twisting stuff. Again, I'm just sort of warming up my spine because I'm going to be doing circle walking. And circle walking is wonderful for your spine. You literally walk in a circle, but the thing that makes it different is I'm going to be twisting my upper torso into the circle. So if my right side is on the inside, I'm going to be twisting to my right and looking over to my right. If the left side is on the inside, I'm going to be twisting to the left, etc. And so what I'm doing there is I'm going to twist my spine while walking, which is a light kind of shaking on the spine. And you're loosening up and using all those muscles. So over time, your spine is going to get stronger and more flexible. So basically, I'm going to do spinal maintenance by twisting my spine a bunch. Ooh, and I'm just warming up my spine right now. And actually, I'll do this one real quick, just one round of this one. Okay, so by the way, so this is noodly arms. If you're interested, you can see lots of examples and descriptions of this on my channel. This is, I call this shoulder waist, just because I'm not very good at naming things. And then this is Green Dragon, Driving for the Pearl of Wisdom. I didn't name that one. What I'm going to do is, so let's see. I'm standing feet close together, parallel, knees slightly bent. I'm taking my social fingers and moving them down the seams of my jeans or down the creases in your thighs. And then I'm going to open up. I'm stretching my arms and fingers away from my body to try to get a little bit of opening up in my rotator cuffs and my elbow joints, elbows, whatever. Turn the hands together and touch. And I'm trying to get them above. So the butt of my hand, where there's a little bit of a crease there, is above the fontanelle. Lean to the left. And then the hands are pointing forward. And I'm going to move them across at the third eye level, looking the opposite direction and pushing my hips the opposite direction. Mid dantian solar plex level. Lower dantian semi-reproductive level. And back up again. I just heard something, so I want to check what's going on. No, I guess things are fine. Not sure what that was. I'd say technical difficulties, but don't know what that sound was. All right, same thing other side. I end up on my right side there, even though maybe I didn't quite finish it. Oh, this is really good at stretching the spine in different directions. Now there's more to it than that, but that's the basics. But now that I've done that, my spine is pretty well warmed up. So I'm going to now do circle walking. What I'll do is I'm going to set a center point and I'll walk around. I could use Chesh, but he's not in a very good place. He is actually in the way, but that's kind of his role. Let's see. I can work with that a little bit further. That'll work. Okay, so I'll start with circle walking. This is the approximate center of my circle. Actually, I can come a little further up. That'll work. Bigger circles are easier to work with. So right now I've got my right to the inside. Actually, I'm going to start with my left to the inside. I traditionally start left to inside, going counterclockwise, just because So when you're doing something like Tai Chi or the other sports like that, they're more linear. Bagua is all about circular movement. And so, you've got left side on the inside, right side on the inside. So you do the exact same things in mirror. And if, for example, you're working with somebody else and you're opposite of them, you don't, you do the opposite of what they're doing. So it's very difficult when you're working like that. So just one thing to do is start simple, start with one side on the inside. So feet parallel. I'm going to work on sung or dynamic relaxation. And I actually, anytime I talk about Wu Chi, I'm really giving you some cues for sung. So feet parallel, knees bent. Now, if you want to, you can go through a whole routine of tightening and releasing from top to bottom. But I'm just going to go ahead and straighten my body, relax my sacrum down. And I'm going to open a window. I'll use dragon palms for right now. So what I'm doing is I'm twisting my body. I'm looking over my hand, and I'm going to walk around the circle. Now, the thing is, I can turn a lot more than that. So I'm going to sort of limit my turning, but the circle is sort of a suggestion. And I'm not going to worry too much about the way I'm taking my steps because of the carpet, and also because I've got Chesh there. So this will be fine for now. There we goes. Okay. Okay, so actually let me do this then. All right, so let's see if I can mud step in here. Slop in the footwork right now. I have trouble on smaller circles. That's even worse. All right, I'm going to work on Master Weilin Wong's linking palm set. I haven't done it for a while, so it's going to be a bit rusty. All right. This is the first palm change. Second palm change. I'm going to go ahead and move really slow here because it just feels good to move nice and slow. Number 3. Four. Five. careful. I'm out of balance here. Hey, Chesh. What's up, buddy? This is an extra kick. Oof. Let's see. And I'm going over here. Number 6. Look at him. Number 7. I just did something wrong. Let's see. Ah, that's it. Okay, so that was, so notice my left's on the inside. So I did something wrong somewhere. I'm going to go the other direction to see if I can get it right this time. It felt wrong in a couple places. I know one place where I did one extra step, so that might have been the place, but I was messed up before then, so I'll figure it out. This is why you have to practice these things, because it's difficult to remember them sometimes. So. All right, so number 1. That's interesting. I was going right. So when I did it this way, I did the same thing. So I messed up right at the beginning on that last one. Okay, well, all right, back to where I was. Number 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm just going to do the basic version of 5. Missing something on 5. Wait a minute, is it? Nope, that's backwards. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. So let's start here. Notice what I'm doing is I'm going lower and lower fidelity as I'm trying to work out the closer and closer to the part of the shape that I'm getting wrong. And then once I do that, I'll go back up and increase the fidelity, because right now speed is might actually be will allow me. There's 1. Now right there, I'm in the right position. So the next thing is to either do this or to do this 2 more times. Do that an odd number of times, and then 1, 2. That's correct. But So 1, 2, 3, still on 3, 4, 5, 6, ha ha ha, 7. And now I'm going opposite direction. Okay, good, worked into it. So now I've got the shape. And I'll tell you, for me, an indication of my ability or my current memorization on a particular thing is, can I do it slow? And if I can do it slow, then it's sort of locked in. If I can't do it slow, then then it's just not fresh in my head. So if I can't do it slow, I'll speed it up until I can get approximately what it is, and then I can start to go back in and fill back in the details. So get the major shape, and then hone in, hone in, hone in. So I'm going to try this a little bit closer to the correct direction. And so the consideration, if I keep working in one direction, it's slightly asymmetrical, but given that I'm not doing it too deeply, I'm going to go ahead and keep doing it in the same basic direction so that so I can reduce the number of variables for helping remember the shape of the thing. So I'm here. That's 1. Now I go into 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so that's actually 6, and the other one is 7. Getting closer. So let's do that again. So 1, 2. I'm really doing sloppy here. 4, 5. And now that's 6. I can do 3. Then weaving 7, 8. Return to source. I'll continue in this direction. So now I've got right on the inside. I'm going clockwise. Okay, so now I'm going to call this out a little bit more. Okay, so brush the pie off the hand, carry the wood, raise the shutter, push out the moon, pair of geese, fly together, bullwinkle. And if you don't know Rocky and Bullwinkle, oh well. Okay, number 4. This is throw off the helmet. This is pick the fruit and grasp the beard. Throw. And then from here, it's, that's not right. Yes. And that's something I often forget, is there's a step there. Okay, so I'm right on the inside. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then right here, there. Because now if I do that, 6 is 1, 2, which is how many of those I should be doing. And then I just mixed some stuff up, but that's fine. Okay. So I'm going in the right direction, so that's something. All right. All right. I got through it twice, once each side. I'll call that for now. Sometimes rote practice is necessary just to remember things. And I guess I did have 2 waters, actually. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up with a little bit of stretching. I've been working quite a bit on my hamstrings the last few nights. I'm going to work more just on the front a little bit here. I'm going to start with my knees together, and then I'm going to sit back onto my heels. Now, if you can get to your heels, that's great. You can then spread your feet and go further down. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then I'm going to stay here for a little bit and let my body sort of warm up. And slowly over time, I'm going to go lower and lower. And I'm really going to get a nice stretch on the front here, which if you sit all day, you're going to be tight. So this is going to be good for reversing the effects of sitting all day long. This is one of several good poses that I've got. I've got a sequence of several poses to help reverse all the ill effects of sitting. Okay, you're being a little bit, you're moving too much, dude. I can't pet you with you moving that much. Okay, so my bum is squarely on the ground at the moment. As I work my way back, it's going to come up just a touch, and so I'll just sort of sit here for a little bit. Also, what I'm doing is I'm hyper extending my ankles or dorsiflexion, and also I'm hyperflexing or closing my knees. So I'm getting a lot of extreme extension, and I'm going to put a little more pressure on myself and maybe even go hyper just a little bit more. And if I try to go into that too quickly, my body's going to just sort of say nope, and it'll just spasm. So I'm going to have to work my way into it very slowly. Okay, Chesh, stop. Stop. Okay, thank you. At the beginning of this pose, I'm fine with petting him, but the further I get into this pose, the less I can have him bumping into me. Okay, I'll come out of this a bit slowly here. I'm going to stay here for just a bit. I come out in stages because I'm relaxing to different levels of hyperextension, if you will. So right there, I can feel the sort of the complete blood flow and just everything coming back in. So I'm going to stay here for just a second. And then I'll lean forward. And there we go. Whew. And that one also really gets the arches pretty well. All right, now, I haven't done this for a couple of days, so let me show you something about the connection of ligaments in your body, or ligaments, tendons, etc. So the Lao Gong, middle finger, that's about here. This is an energy point. Same thing, the bubbling well is on the bottom of the foot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my Lao Gong, the skin of my hand, to pull up by tucking my tailbone, basically, by pushing my sacrum towards my heels. So I'm going to show you how you can do this for yourself if you'd like to try. Now, it takes a while to be able to do this pose and also have the flexibility to move your body in this way. This is what I'll do is notice I'm in a tabletop. I'm going to externally or laterally rotate both of my hands so they're pointing back towards me. All right, so again. Now, right here, I'm not putting a lot of pressure on them. This is still, I mean, right here, this is pretty good. But if you want to extend this, you might do something like sit back a little bit. And so I'm going to sit here for just a little bit and warm this up before I try to do the rest of it, just because I don't want this to be loudly screaming. And this, so right now, I can feel a whole lot of stretch in my forearms. If I sit here and don't go any deeper, after a few moments, might be 30 seconds, maybe less, I'll notice that it just isn't, I just don't notice as much. And so by staying at a certain level of discomfort, my nervous system says, oh, okay, we're okay with this. Because my nervous system is using pain as a signal. And I wouldn't call this pain. This is discomfort, or, well, let's call it discomfort. And so that first signal of discomfort, if you ignore it, will turn up and up and up. But if you sustain it and normalize it, then it calms down, and then you can go deeper. Chesh. Yeah, nah. Okay, nope. No, you can't do this. I'm gonna have to put you out of the room for this one. This one, I'm too hyperextended to have him in the room. Okay, buddy, I'll be back. Yeah, you gotta stay up for a second. Problem is, I cannot come out of that pose quickly at all, or I will do damage. That's the thing about a lot of these poses. I'm trying to get myself into near, just to the point of high discomfort, and then hold it. And if he starts bumping me on something like that, where it's a very targeted pose, it's dangerous, because it's perfectly stable unless a cat is bouncing on you. So I'm going to go back and do this again. Now, even though I came out of the pose, and I don't recommend doing repetitions, I'm still pretty warmed up here. So now you can extend this, as I mentioned already. I could, for example, I could go up into a down dog position, but I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to have my knees just below my hips. So I'm in the tabletop position with my hand reversed. I'm going to take my legs a little bit wider, about hip width apart, and then I'm going to attempt to push my sacrum to my heels. That's not doing it. Let me get these a little bit closer. I think I need to be just a little more. Okay, there we go. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. So I'm pulling all the stuff, all the connections in my system by doing that. And I'm feeling some tension right here as I push my tailbone towards my heels. So that was one of the first early signals I had of such a direct connection between a particular energy point in the Chinese medicine system and something in sort of like anatomy. And really, if you think about it, anatomy is an approximation. If you look at the pictures of the organs in a body, they're all idealized because no two bodies look the same at all. So, they're just different systems of representation. And like any systems, they can be overly zealous about their findings. So without getting too controversial, there's a lot of controversy around the salt mafia, just saying. And let's not get into sugar or the normal US diet. because that's just a racket. All right, I'm going to go ahead and do a little more shaking, and I'm going to call it a night. So quick recap of some of the learning models I used tonight. First is simple repetition, and done something for a while, so I wanted to work on it. Second thing, there was all the warm up around it. So I did some, you could talk about just sort of doing some preparatory work so that you're ready to do the other stuff. And so the analog here is I'm warming up my body, but maybe it's getting paper and pencil. That is, I'm sort of doing the stuff that will sort of make the other stuff a little bit easier. That's sort of a general technique though. But then more specifically, I started by doing the linking set, trying to do it in high detail, and I wasn't able to. So my memory wasn't quite up to scratch. So I slowed it down. Sorry, I sped it up, not slowed it down. And by speeding it up a little bit, it didn't take as much concentration because I wasn't going as deep into the movements. And so I was able to sort of think about through the next thing. And so by reducing the fidelity, I eventually figured out what I was doing wrong, figured out where I was making the wrong step, and reconstructed it. And then I went through in one and did it in both directions once. So that's sort of that's a memorization sequence I often go through. Try to do it. I can't do it. Change the speed to make it easier to replicate. And then once you've done that, then go back to the base speed. So if I'm trying to do something fast, then I'll practice it slow. If I'm trying to do something slow, I'll practice it faster, actually. And that's just another observation for these internal martial arts. The slower I'm able to do them, the better I understand them. All right, I'm going to call that a night. Good night.